Hello and welcome to this video, and in this video I want to talk about JEAN-LUC Ponty. Now JEAN-LUC Ponty, in terms of jazz fusion, is one of the absolute greats. He's just a real icon. A French violinist, classically trained, but also jazz trained. So there's a history of jazz violin, you know, with the sort of giant being Stefan Grappelli, but we've also got players like Stuff Smith. We've got players like Joe Venuti. But a lot of these players are sort of coming out of a sort of swing era idea of jazz violin. JEAN-LUC Ponty really changes the nature of violin playing. He's got the bebop chops, he understands the language. I would put him as a sort of, he really interprets Coltrane onto the violin. And he emerges in the 60s as an absolute virtuoso, as a prodigy. You know, he works with Stefan Grappelli, he works with all the greats, and he really makes a splash. And what you get with Ponty at this point is quite avant-garde, post-Coltrane violin playing, but he's working with all the movers and the shakers. I'm going to put an album up here before I get to the real meat and potatoes of this video, and it's this one, King Kong. Right, this is where Ponty meets Frank Zappa. And I think perhaps Ponty was coming out of that jazz thing, but when he meets Zappa, I think Zappa changes him, right? And I think it sharpens Ponty's vision as a composer, right? He spends some time in the Zappa band. He doesn't get a lot of solo space, really. And I think he leaves the Zappa band because he's not got that much solo space and joins the Mahavishnu Orchestra. And there you see him then taking on that Mahavishnu history, you know, in the second incarnation of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Now, I've argued elsewhere that Ponty coming in as a soloist that was as strong as McLaughlin really gives that second Mahavishnu Orchestra some gravitas for me. I think Ponty really adds something to it, which makes it as equal as the first Mahavishnu Orchestra. I think Aronoff Mike Portnoy does as well, but especially Ponty. He is an absolute monster, and he has to be reckoned with in his own way, right? And so, because of various reasons, I think the direction the Mahavishnu Orchestra was going in, but more over composer credit, Ponty leaves the Zappa band in, I think, about 1975, 76. And he forges a solo career. And he makes a sequence of albums in the 70s, and I really want to talk about those albums on this video, which are just essential jazz fusion albums, right? Now, I have to confess something here, is I've always been aware of this, and I grew up listening to King Kong. I grew up listening to Enigmatic Ocean, which is one of those 70s albums, and I also had Mystical Adventures, which is an 80s album. We'll talk about that in a bit. Those are the three albums I grew up with. But I have to be honest, I was not familiar with this run of classic 70s albums, and this was a real hole in my knowledge in terms of the legacy of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. And this is really important for Ponty, because if we look at Jan Hammer's legacy, Jan Hammer's band really carries the torch for the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I've talked about this on other videos, but it wasn't a success, whereas JEAN-LUC Ponty was a huge success. You know, he would play big gigs, his albums sold well, he almost had like hit records, right, with a series of albums, and these albums I was not familiar with. And so what I decided to do was I thought, I'm going to really listen to these albums, nothing else, which is what I've just done for the past month. I've listened to these albums on rotation so I could do this video for you. It's been really interesting going through them, and my opinion's been changing. Now, you know, I'm going to do a bit of selling now for Ponty. You know, I've been working from this box set. This is real value for money. This is what we're really discussing here, is this JEAN-LUC Ponty box set, which covers 5 of the 70s albums. It runs pretty much from 1975 through to 1979. I think there's the JEAN-LUC Ponty live album, which I have heard and is an incredible album. But I really want to talk about these here, right? So my idea was to go through and rank them and tell you a little bit about them. So I put them on, and my ranking basically would fall into 2. So at number 2, I would have this, which is his first album, Upon the Wings of Music. And at number 1, I would have all the rest. You cannot differentiate between these, 4 albums. They're absolutely some of the greatest jazz fusion albums ever made, And this is from someone who hasn't grown up listening to these albums. I knew Enigmatic Ocean. And when I went through all this, I thought, well, Enigmatic Ocean will be the best one, and then, the other ones will be not quite as good. It's not the case. But let's talk a little bit about this, if I can get it the right way around. There he is, right? So this is his first album. It's recorded, I think, in 1975. He's got Ndugu on drums, Pratish Rushan on keyboards. And I've got to be honest, I don't think the band lineup is quite right on this. I don't think it's quite right. And also I think Ponty's compositional voice is almost there, but still not quite right. There's a lot of funky jams on here. There's a lot of sort of Mahavishnu-esque stuff, and he's trying to put that together. Now, I really think if you take the sort of 70s funk sound that was around in the late 70s in terms of fusion, and then you take the Zappa sort of orchestrated classical approach, which Ponty knows inside out, and you take the Mahavishnu together and you put those together, that forms the Ponty sound, sort of. But on here, that's what you're getting. You're getting a straight fusion between all these things, and it's not quite right. It's not quite right. I think Ndugu's having problems as well, traversing through some of the time signatures on here. I don't know why. Ndugu's one of my favourite drummers, but listen to him on here, just not quite gelling. This is a great fusion album. It doesn't fall into the pitfalls of fusion at that time, and none of these albums do. Ponty never goes for that commercial thing that so many other people did at that time, that ruins later Stanley Clarke albums, that ruins Al Di Meola albums, that ruins Chick Corea albums, Herbie Hancock albums. There's no vocals on here, there's no disco songs, it's out and out fusion, and he's playing, and his violin playing is incredible. So how would I rate this? Well, probably 7 out of 10 in terms of a fusion album, right? Then he makes these 4, and I really wanted to try and rank these, as I said, and I couldn't find which one was better than the other. Whichever one I put on seemed to be the best one. They're just absolutely incredible. So on the next album, which is called Aurora, this one here, he really nails a sound, okay? Now, what's that sound? Well, I feel that on the second track, there's a second track called Renaissance. And Renaissance has all those elements. It has that sort of Mahavishnu arpeggiating harmony in there. It has sort of that orchestrated classical thing, which I think the Mahavishnu Orchestra did, but also Zappa did. But also is in Ponty's heritage as well. It's danceable. I think Renaissance was a sort of minor hit for Ponty and established him as an artist. But I felt listening to it on that, he comes up with a signature sound which we can only describe as Jean-Luc Ponty. It's also got elements of sort of bluegrass country music, which of course the Mahavishnu Orchestra had as well. But Ponty takes it down a very accessible route. I don't want to say a commercial route, but a very accessible route, which is a route that the Dixie Dregs took as well. For me personally, I would go for Ponty over the Dixie Dregs every single time, because Ponty's vision and sound and virtuosity is just unparalleled in jazz fusion. I really rate him as one of the great soloists, with Chick Corea, Herbie, McLaughlin, really up there. Someone who can really play jazz, could play bebop, can do everything, and has forged a unique sound within fusion. So what am I saying about these 4 albums? This is equal to the greatest of Weather Report, the greatest of Herbie Hancock, the greatest of Chick Corea, and the greatest of the Mahavishnu Orchestra, John McLaughlin. They really are up there. And Aurora is absolutely fantastic. He nails it on this. This album, being the second album in, you can hear the budget's grown in terms of production. The production is very dry. It sounds like they're all playing in the room at the same time, and that's what really makes this album, and they fly, right? One of the problems I have with late 70s fusion albums is, they don't fly, right? They don't play. You know, you feel like the solos have been dialed in, and you feel that if you saw these bands live, they would be burning, you know, and you check out bootlegs and they're burning, and then you listen to the studio albums, and the record company has had to pull it all in, and you get a, you know, 30-second keyboard solo, 30-second guitar solo. It's not the case with Ponty. On these albums, they're commercial and accessible, but they really, really play, right? And not only does he play, but he lets everybody play on these albums. He starts to use a number of musicians on here. If I just go through the lineup on, which one is it? Say, if we look at Cosmic Messenger, he's got obviously JEAN-LUC Ponty on violin, Ralph Armstrong on bass. He's on most of these albums from, I think he's on all of these albums actually, from the Mahavishnu band. He's got Alan Zavod, who would later play with Frank Zappa on keyboards. He's got a sort of various drummers on these albums, and he has Daryl Stumer on guitar on a lot of these. I think there's no lineups on these, so I'm going from my memory, but I'm pretty sure that on Aurora, all of these albums except for Cosmic Messenger, it's Daryl Stumer. But of course, appears later on in the Genesis group, and before this was playing with George Duke. Daryl Stumer is an incredible guitarist, and exactly right for the Ponty band because of his picking. His picking is so precise and aggressive, like John McLaughlin, and so when he's doubling those violin lines, it's got that sound. But the point is here is that so often Ponty lets Daryl Stumer just fly. You know, he lets the keyboardist Alan Zavod just fly. You know, there's even a couple of really incredible bass solos on these where you really hear what a fantastic bass player Ralph Armstrong is. So on Aurora, right, what we've got is the band with this new sound, and it's really organic and loose. But I feel that Ponty also starts to develop a production style, and the production style really emerges on the next album here, which is this one, Imaginary Voyage. This is just, it's like an upgrade. It's smoother, it's more controlled, the production starts to pull in, you know, this is just absolutely incredible. Another thing Ponty does that I love, and I think it starts up with Aurora is in two parts, part one and part two. So you get this sort of orchestrated progressive rock type approach on this album. On this one, we get Imaginary Voyage, you know, which is in 4 parts. It's absolutely incredible. All these albums are so similar, it's really hard to pull them apart. But this one, the production values have gone up, and he's really starting to understand that controlled sound. He's really understand that this sort of almost like American folk bluegrass violin sound he's developing as well. There's some incredible modal ideas on these albums, incredible harmonies, you know. To that is just absolute masterpiece. All these 4 albums are a masterpiece, right? That's followed up by an Enigmatic Ocean, okay? Now, this one, for me, when I was a kid, I got this album, and the reason was because it got Alan Holdsworth on it. And the only time I ever listened to it, to be honest, was to listen to the Alan Holdsworth solos. Putting it into context now with all these Ponty albums, it's equal to the rest. The production values have got a little bit more, even more expansive. But listening to it now, the double guitars of Stumer and Holdsworth is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think as a kid I was a little bit frustrated that Daryl Stumer had solo spots. I was like, why didn't they let Holdsworth play? But I understand it now. And at one point, Ponty, they all duel. I think it could be on Trans-Love Express. Right, these albums are new to me, so I'm have to remember. It's either Trans-Love Express or Mirage. It's definitely Trans-Love Express. I think they duel with each other. And we get Stumer, Alan Zavod, Ponty, Holdsworth. And they all just stand up with each other. And you hear these 4 characters. And to hear the contrast between Stumer's really sort of aggressive alternate picking approach and Holdsworth's legato approach is incredible. There's a couple of Holdsworth solos on here where I really feel Holdsworth himself is pushing experimentally what he does on guitar. This is an absolute masterpiece. Steve Smith's drums on here are incredible. The sound's incredible, right? But I'm not going to say this is the best one. I thought I was. I think all these are absolutely incredible. And we finish up with Cosmic Messenger. Cosmic Messenger must rank as one of the greatest produced, greatest sounding fusion albums ever made. It's got Peter Mauner on guitar, who I know from Magic by Billy Cobham, and was a guitarist that I always thought was fantastic, and just think, who's this guitarist on that album? He's great on here, some great solos. We've also got Joaquin Liavano on guitar. Don't know who that is. I don't know whether he's doing any solos on here, but I could recognise some of Peter Mauner's guitar solos. We've got the incredible Casey Sherrill, again, a guy I don't very little about. So when I put this album on, the last one, and I put this on for the first time, I thought, oh, it's got this new drummer, I never heard of them, and the drumming on this is absolutely incredible. This Casey Sherrill is pushing the band rhythmically into a new area. It's almost like what's going to happen in dance music and electronic music in the 90s. You know, when you start to get jazz musicians mixing drum and bass and electronica and hip hop, you know, and there's this sort of expansive, trippy sound, almost like space sound. You know, if you think of the Jamiroquai and all that, Ponty's opening the sound out on this. This one's got a slightly different sound. He's moved forward into this more sort of spacey world. And one thing I must say that I noticed listening to them back to back is this one is very much about orchestration, and it is like an imaginary voice. It takes you on a journey. This one is very ethereal, and you do feel like you're floating in an enigmatic ocean. And this one is definitely about space. It sounds like space. It sounds like, you know, celestial travel. You know, it's an incredible sound. Now, I was very familiar as a kid with Mystical Adventures 1982. I think that's the name of the album. I do these videos off my head, and as I'm getting old, sometimes I question myself. But if it's not that, you'll tell me in the comments. That album is a brilliant Ponty album, and it's got a real sound which is taking in bits of minimalism, taking in sort of bits of pop music, and I really like that album. It's got a real different sound, and not many people were making successful fusion albums in 1982. But I feel that he really develops the sound here, and for me, this is a greater album than that. So that's Jean-Luc Ponty. If you want to check him out, you know, get on to whichever your favourite place is to buy CDs and buy that box set, because it's so reasonably priced to contain, you know, 5 of the best jazz fusion albums of all time and 4 absolute masterpieces. So that's my take on Jean-Luc Ponty. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, I'm not as familiar with these albums as I am with some of the other albums I talk about, so I'm sure people are going to correct me. I try and keep these videos fresh by just going for it and talking, and sometimes I can't pull all the information. So I'm sorry I haven't been so detailed on the lineups. I'm sure you can check those out. But what I spoke about was what spoke to me in the last 2 or 3 weeks I've spent listening to these albums on rotation. So these are sort of the Mahavishnu Legacy albums, and these are some of the best ones going. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe and all that stuff, but you know me, I love the comments, so put the comments in. I think this channel has some of the best comments ever. You know, you go to look at it and people are writing essays, they're telling me about their personal history and how they grew up and what happened to them. It's absolutely incredible, so I really appreciate that. And I'm hoping in the future when people visit this channel, it won't just be my videos that are a resource for anyone interested in this music, but also, you know, the resource will be your comments as well, so keep them coming. Okay, I'm finished, I'm done. I'll see you on the next video, and thanks for watching.